Good evening, everybody. I'll give you a chance to join if you're able to join me live tonight on my latest Peyton Principles Natural Health in the series of Good Health. This is Tuesday, the 4th of August at 6 o'clock, and I've been doing these every Tuesday since the start of 2020, right through lockdown and continuing on right through the summer holidays. And the whole purpose of this series of weekly talks is to provide you, my valued listeners, useful information that you can take away and apply to your everyday life, and hopefully to help take away some of the confusion, misinformation that's potentially out there, something that you can take away, put into practice, and help you with good health and optimal health overall. So tonight, as you can see, I've moved all my talks into my closed Facebook group. So thank you for joining my group. The group has been designed more specifically for helping those with digestive symptoms, gut health, IBS symptoms, IBD conditions, but it is actually relevant to all people because at the end of the day, whether we're experiencing either small digestive symptoms or more chronic and uncomfortable symptoms, it may well be that without realizing it, your digestion may not be optimal, and this can have a big impact on your health overall. So tonight I decided I'd talk about mindful eating. It may be a term you might have come across before, you may not, it might be something completely new to you, and you might wonder what on earth this has got to do to my IBS closed Facebook group, and that's exactly what I'm going to talk about. And this is something that is important to everybody. So I hope you listen through and listen to this to the very end. I talk about this a lot to my clients, particularly those that have digestive symptoms. And the reason why I talk about mindful eating is this link between the mind and our digestive ability. Because we are all interconnected. As a naturopath, it's what I talk about all the time. It's how I was trained. It's understanding the interrelationship between all our body systems, and you can't disconnect one from the other. Now, when we understand a little bit more about the mind and how it impacts on our ability to digest food, then you'll understand why it's so important. And what happens is whenever we start to eat food, a message in ideal circumstances or different messages are triggered because messages are taken to the brain and the brain interprets those messages, and different hormonal messages are sent to the digestive system. And it's that process that triggers the start of our digestive function. The release of digestive secretions that are critical to the breakdown of food and more. So you may think, well, what does it matter? But if you think about the fact that when we see food, when we smell food, when we put food in our mouth, even when we start to think about food, when we start chewing food, all those actions are the ones that send the message to the brain, and the brain interprets that, sending messages initially to the stomach to say food is coming and it needs to be prepared for it and it needs to start releasing digestive secretions. So you think of all those instances and all those occasions when you are rushing around, you rushed in and you need to eat, or you need to grab a quick breakfast because you're late to catch a bus or a train or getting to work. You have just come off the phone where you're frustrated with some company where you're trying to sort out some sort of dispute or getting something sorted, and you come off the food and you're feeling really wound up, and it's time someone says, your dinner's ready, it's time to go and eat. Or you've had a disagreement and an argument with your partner. All of these things, every single one of those, are not putting your body in the right state to be digesting food. going back to what I just said, you know, the body needs to understand that food is coming. The mind needs to recognize those signals, and then the stomach needs to pick up on those signals. Because if it doesn't, you may not realize it. You may go, well, Caroline, why are you telling me this? Because I'm fine. I have no problem at all with digestive symptoms. You know, I never get any problems at all. But actually, that's great because you don't get the discomfort of digestive symptoms, but it doesn't actually mean that your body is producing enough of its digestive secretions to optimally break down that meal. So what happens when food leaves the mouth? It travels down the esophagus, and the first point that it comes to is our stomach. And it's in that place that food will sit for quite a long period of time. It could be 2 hours, it could be slightly more. It depends on the contents of the meal, and particularly whether it's a heavy or higher amount of protein in that meal will determine partly how long the food is going to stay there. But it's because protein is the main macronutrient that gets broken and pulled apart in the stomach using hydrochloric acid and an enzyme called pepsin. But the whole meal is going to get churned up there. And when food leaves the stomach, and when it leaves the stomach moving into the small intestines, the contents of the stomach by that point, leaving the stomach, and it's called chyme, should be really, really acidic. And that then sends a trigger, the acidity. There are further communications going on in the body to sort of say, oh, that acidic chyme that's just left the stomach, right, I now need to be telling the gallbladder, I need to be telling the pancreas to be releasing the further release of very, very important digestive secretions for the further breakdown of our food. So we've got the impact of potentially a lack of digestive secretions are going to have an impact on digestive symptoms that you may experience. But other things that may have an impact is that you may not be fully breaking down your food, so you may not be extracting all your nutrients sufficiently from your food. And acid in your stomach is really, really important for two other nutrients, or two groups of nutrients. One nutrient is B12. We need the acidity of the stomach to optimally be able to absorb B12 into the bloodstream and utilize it. And B12 is really important for our nervous system and really important for energy. And it's often when we go through a very, very long period of time of having very low energy that if you went to a GP, they may well just test you for B12. They might put you on a full blood test, blood panel, and they may identify that you're low on B12. That can take years actually to be identified. So you could be going for quite a long period of time without realizing that's happening. The other important, really important aspect of having sufficient stomach acid is the ability to optimally absorb our minerals from our food, whether it's iron, whether it's calcium, whether it's magnesium, whether it's zinc. All of these need good levels of stomach acidity. It does something that we call ionizing those minerals. It puts them in the right state to be optimally absorbed through into the bloodstream from the gut. So we know why we need iron. Again, it could be linked to symptoms of low energy. And you could get into a vicious circle because zinc is needed to make hydrochloric acid, stomach acid. If you don't have enough stomach acid, you may find it more difficult to absorb zinc. So you can see how these things can start to have a knock-on impact in all aspects of our health if we're not optimally able to absorb our nutrients. So it does extend way beyond symptoms, digestive symptoms that you may have if indeed you do have them. It does then go on to other aspects within the gut and in the colon with potentially upsetting gut bacteria, but that goes into a more complicated subject matter, which is more than what I want to talk about today. So mindful eating, what on earth should you do? I've talked about what it is. I'm going to explain why it is so important to our health. I do go and talk about this on my course about my relief from IBS because it's a really important aspect to discuss. So mindful eating, I've explained the things that happen to make it all go wrong. So when we step back and think about it, it's how can we make sure we put ourselves into a position, into the right state of mind, so that the mind understands that food is coming. Are you relaxed? Are you sitting at a table? Are you distracted by watching TV or scrolling through your phone and looking at messages? Are you actively focusing and concentrating on eating your meal? Or is it one of those situations that many of us do where you suddenly think, I've eaten my meal, I don't even remember doing that. I mean, you could be at work, and I used to do this when I worked in an office and really, really busy, to just think, I tell you what, I'm going to maximize my time here in the office today. I'm just going to sit at my desk, and whilst I'm sitting at my desk, I'm just going to catch up on my emails. How on earth can you be optimally digesting your food? The brain isn't picking up all those messages in a strong way to be able to deal with the food. And like I said, you may not be aware of having any digestive symptoms, but I'm absolutely convinced that it will be having an impact on your ability to effectively break down that meal and to effectively extract all the nutrients from it. So what else can you do other than sitting at the table? You could be trying to do everything you can to lower the stress levels, because when we are stressed, we are not in the opposite of the fight or flight stress mode, which is known as rest and digest, the parasympathetic nervous system. And it's called rest and digest for that very reason. So are you doing everything that you possibly can to lower your stress levels? What can you do to try and take your mind off any stressful events that may be happening in your life at that time, at that moment, on that day, in that week? What can you do to just try and put yourself into the frame of mind where you are focusing on the digestion and not thinking about the stressful events that are going on in your life? I talk about different techniques and things that you can follow on my course to help with this. And there are lots of really useful ways to really think and focus on helping and supporting your digestion, so that you are helping the body get the messages to the brain, and the brain in turn sends the messages back to our stomach. It takes seconds from food to travel from our throat when we swallow down the esophagus and into our stomach. And if the body and the stomach is really not prepared for that, it is then not going to deal with that food very well at all. And of course it's fine, you know, on the odd occasion, you may be having a stressful day, a stressful week, but it's very important to think, other than just stresses in your life, are you taking every opportunity to focus on your meal and eat mindfully so you can deal with that meal as well as you possibly can? So that's what I wanted to talk about tonight, mindful eating and the importance of following mindfulness when you're eating every single meal to help encourage the release of our gastric secretions and other digestive secretions, so that you can digest your food optimally, help the release of all your nutrients, help the uptake of nutrients into the bloodstream, in particular your minerals and B12, but everything else as well. As I said, it's one of the key things, one of the several things I talk about on my IBS, Getting Relief from IBS course that's available now. £27 for a video course, which is in 5 parts, lots of short snippets of videos for you to watch. That's available. If you look at the top of my page here, at the top of the group, you'll see the banner that you can click on if you're interested in purchasing that. But I hope you'll take that away, spend a few moments being mindful about what I've just said, and start and going to put that into practice on a day-to-day basis. So have a good week, and I'll be back next Tuesday with another topic that I hope you'll find equally important. And all my previous weekly Facebook Lives have all now been loaded into my YouTube channel, also called Peyton Principles Natural Health, so it should be easy for you to find. So please go across and subscribe there, and then you can pick and choose from all the different Facebook Lives. They're all there captured in video format. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to seeing you next week.